Hello, everyone. Nora Armani here, Socially Relevant Film Festival, New York. We are back with you with another one of our Meet the Filmmakers chats. And today we have another selection of wonderful filmmakers who bring us a collection of different films, whether they are narratives, documentaries, and we are going to find out. I think mostly, except with one, today we have three narratives and one documentary. It's always very interesting to mix and match the filmmakers because when one filmmaker is talking about their film, mostly we think documentaries are different. The approach is quite different, of course. There is no script as such, but a concept. And with the narratives, it's completely different because you have the script. It has to be, even though in both cases, as we know, especially with independent film productions, with the narratives, there are quite a bit of changes that might happen. Necessity is the mother of invention, as they say, and always necessity imposes itself. And there are certain things that you find more convenient while during the shoot, and not and documentaries usually are made in the editing room because you end up shooting miles and miles of footage and you have to capture every moment because there are certain things that happen completely unexpectedly. Even in narratives, my personal experience has been that you get scripted, you rehearse and everything, but then at that very moment, something might happen which surprises you. And the film is telling you its own story. The film is also a character to be reckoned with. And you cannot just say, no, 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 I don't want to do it that way. Because when you go against cosmos, against the flow, against whatever it is that makes you want to do this, it doesn't quite work. Personally, I've always found that when I go with my instincts, things turn out better. So, this is the 9th annual edition of the Socially Relevant Film Festival, New York. And I'm very proud to say that in the past 8 editions, we have screened over 550 films from 39 countries. And this year, we're coming to you with a new selection of 64 films from 39 countries, the same 39 countries. And they are a mixture of shorts, documentaries, narrative features. We also have a script writing competition, of which we and the jury sit down and read everything and select finalists. And those finalists are given a reading with actors so that the scriptwriters have a chance of hearing out loud how their script or how their dialogue is going to sound. A brief idea of why this festival exists when there are so many festivals out there, you would say. Well, our difference is that we focus on all sorts of social issues and exclusively focus on social issues and steer away from any form of violence. When I talk about violence, I mean gratuitous violence, and I mean also, gratuitous. That also already explains it. We have some members of the audience who are with us. Hello, Norbert Abu Darham is watching. This is fantastic. And it's really cool when people put remarks. And this is a good point for me to announce to our viewers that if you have questions later on to our filmmakers, please feel free to put it in the comments section. As I was saying, it's a festival that steers away from portraying overt violence or dwelling upon violent forms of filmmaking. By that, I mean abrupt cuts, loud music, explosions, and all sorts of things that leave you with a headache rather than with a good human interest story. So without further ado, let me bring on our wonderful filmmakers who will take a moment and introduce themselves and say something about their film before we delve deeply into each. There you go. Crystal, you're right there, first person next to me, so you can go.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you so much, Nora, for this space. My name's Crystal. I'm based in Honolulu right now, but I'm a transnational American Chinese filmmaker. And my story, Blurring the Color Line, is a documentary that kind of follows the Chinese in the South, American South, I'm speaking of, during segregation, because my grandmother grew up in the South and she grew up in a grocery store in the Black neighborhood. And so I was fascinated with what it meant to be non-Black and white in a very Black and white space. So it's the exploration of race relations, particularly between the Chinese community and the African American community during Jim Crow. Thank you.
That's great. And then we have Jacob or Jakob, or whichever you prefer.
Whichever you prefer. Hello, my name is Jakob in German, Jacob in English. I'm a German filmmaker based in Frankfurt, and my film is A Handful of Water, which is a fiction feature, my debut fiction feature. And it deals with the story of two misfits who are very different, and there's an old man and a young girl, and they befriend each other despite all circumstances, because she had to run away from home as her family is threatened by deportation from Germany because she comes from Yemen, and he actually has a history of refuge himself, because he comes from the former German parts of now Poland, and had to flee from there when he was a child. So that's the connection between the two of them, and it's starring Jürgen Prochnow, whom you might know from, I don't know, Air Force One, Judge Dredd, Dune, and some other American blockbusters where he had like a B-roll, secondary characters.
Yes, but we also need to mention Das Boot.
Exactly. That was his his biggest film.
Iconic movie that everybody, not everybody, but a certain generation of people know. This is very, very interesting and also very poignant in a way, because the description you just made, it is so true of what is going on in Europe right now. What is going on in Ukraine? What is going on in Poland across the border? What is, this refugee and situation is never ending because of what is happening in the world around us. And although your film deals with a Yemeni refugee and at a certain period of time in Germany, suddenly it is very much an actuality.
True.
So that's the truth. So Dale, tell us about your film.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dale Hildebrand. Great group of people here. This film is called Road to the Lemongrove, and it's about an old Sicilian father trying to negotiate his way into heaven. But the only way in is to first go back, rekindle and repair his relationship with his son, go back to Sicily, where he's originally from, and reunite his feuding family and help all find love in places they never imagined.
Yeah, and it's the one comedy we have. You must mention that, because we deal with such heavy topics like, refugees, human trafficking, the sex violence, and women, and I don't know, race and discrimination, environmental issues. And then people go, I don't want to hear about all that. It's all on the news. Yes, it is on the news, but when you see them at the film festival, and where we have taken great care so that the entertainment value of these films is not sacrificed in favor of the preaching and talking about an issue, but it's first and foremost cinema. It's first and foremost film, and well-made film, because that's one of the criteria we look at when we are making these selections. A film might have a fantastic and very timely, very important social issue at its core, but if it's not made well and if the production values are not there, unfortunately, it's not going to be in the selection. And the other way around, it's true. A film might have top-notch quality etc. But they have missed the point, and it's not really dealing with it properly, with the issue that it's trying to tackle, then that one is also out. So we pride ourselves in saying that initially the selection happens with a yes, no, or maybe when we look at the films. Now I'm giving you all the secrets. And then once that yes, no, maybe period goes, the no's, of course, are the ones that I just mentioned. Bad production values, they miss the point, repetitious, too long, acting is horrible. And, you know, it can be many, many criteria why it's out of the picture. Then we focus on the yeses. And these yeses, we let them tell us their own story. We don't say, oh, this year let's focus on refugees, or this year let's focus on the environment. No, we let the filmmakers decide that for us based on what is being submitted. So Jessica, tell us about your film.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Nora, for having us. My name is Jessica Ray, and we did Raise Your Hand. It's my first feature, and it's about two young women in high school in the 90s in the inner city anywhere in the US, and it's about them dealing with the tragedy of what goes on with sexual assault, police violence, and just the challenges of growing up in a difficult community, and how they use art to find their voice, specifically theater.
Yeah. So this is very interesting. But before I get to you, I was in the process of saying that Dale's film is the one and only comedy. And I need to elaborate a little more on that, because it's in the middle of talking about all these socially relevant issues. We need to understand that you can also say something socially relevant through comedy. It doesn't always have to be out in your face, preachy or serious, and so on and so forth. And even in the most dramatic situations, like Jakob, I can think of a couple of moments in your film that are very funny. And you have to have, that's how it is in real life. In the most dramatic, traumatic moments that we are faced with, suddenly something funny happens and the two go hand in hand. So this is cool. We have a very nice collection here, a documentary about a very important period in racial history in the United States. And we have about refugees, we have about family ties, and a Lemongrove that becomes the core of the story, but at the same time, it's more like the father-son relationship. And also Raise Your Hand, a very, very important topic. So let's go back again and do another round. And this time, tell us about how the idea of your film came about, where it started. Maybe it's something you've been carrying around with you for a while, and then a moment triggered something. Or what was in the story that you're telling that attracted your attention, made you want to go out and make a film about it? Crystal?
Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, this was inspired a little bit greatly by my grandmother, who grew up in Augusta, Georgia. So I grew up in San Francisco. And it's only because my grandmother ran away from Augusta, Georgia when she was 17. And she had this really thick Southern accent, but she's very Chinese. You know, she always cooked Chinese food and spoke in Chinese. So I got really confused, and nobody ever told us about her past. And so I would always ask her, and she would tell me stories about running the store in the Black neighborhood. So it got me thinking, wow, what does it mean to be Chinese, and especially a woman, a Chinese traditional woman from a very traditional immigrant Chinese family living in the Black neighborhood in a place where they weren't recognized. And so I started to dig, and I got to learn about both communities, and I brought them together for interviews, and it grew. It took on a life of its own, because then it's like, whoa, I'm dealing with race relations here, and I had to learn so much about our racial history that I did not know much about. There's so many untold stories. So I feel like I opened up this can of worms, and it's very relevant today because Black Lives Matter happened, and then anti-Asian hate happened. So this was all building up to addressing these issues today by looking at our past.
The one sad thing when I talk about these films, the one sad sentence that I bringing up, but it's the truth, is how timely these films are. When you say how timely these films are, at the same time, it means that all the problems that they are talking about are still very much part of our lives. I wish we didn't have to say that, but then that's the truth of the situation of life that we are dealing with. Who is ringing the Tibetan meditation bell? Or is it? Somebody's mic is like pling, reminding us that we have to start meditating or something. Yeah, I mean, like your film, it's so tiny. Last year, I remember I actually went. I live very close to St. John the Divine, the church, and there was a very big manifestation, an event about anti-Asian hate. And they were talking about it, and there were a lot of Black Lives Matter representatives who were talking about how the two intersect and how the situation is going from one to the other now. It's like as though people need a scapegoat. They just need to vent out their frustrations from something. It could be from COVID, I don't know. And they just go, oh, okay, let's hit on this group now. Let's hit on that group now. And films like yours open up our vistas, open up our understanding of what is going on, because we cannot turn a blind eye to these matters. We have to understand that they exist and what we can do about them.
And Nora, I don't know, because you're based in New York, but there are increasing cases of violence against Asian American women just as we speak. And it's crazy.
Well, here as well, a few cases happened that for no reason whatsoever, aggressive behavior happened in the street. People were hit, were even shot in a couple of situations. And it's like unbelievable for no reason except the fact that they obviously look Chinese or Asian, and it's just horrible to acknowledge that. Yes, Jakob, how your film idea came? Where did you find the script? Did you write it? Did somebody bring it to you? Or
well, yeah, no. It was actually my idea, and I co-wrote it. So I wrote the first versions, but then I took on board a fellow scriptwriter, and then another one as well, because we couldn't do it just the two of us. So we had to put bring on board a third one. But then it worked out fine in the end. But the idea was like, as I said, I mean, it's this 2-generation topic. And I was looking at pictures, at photos, actually, from the period right after the Second World War in Germany. And then there's these children that we call Trümmerkinder, which is like children from the ruins of the cities, right? And they have this look in their eyes, and it resembles so much to the look in the eyes of the very young refugees coming in this refugee crisis in 2015 in Germany. And I was thinking, this is strange because it looks so much alike, and it seems like we have a certain past in Germany that we don't talk about that much, or that is not really that we're not aware of. So I wanted to explore that further, and I found out that there's parts of Germany where there's even the third of the population coming from other parts of Germany that don't exist anymore. Like the parts do exist, but not inside Germany. They are part of Poland now, or other countries, mostly Poland. And this kind of history is not really talked about that much, even if it has so much to do with nowadays. So that was why I wanted to tell this story. Yeah.
Yeah. It like, again, we keep going back and saying how similar the situation that we are talking about today, how similar it is with something that happened in the Second World War.
Yeah.
And and it's poignant because the children are the ones who are suffering the most in all of these situations. And I like what you did by juxtaposing the older gentleman who kind of feels out of place. He doesn't have anything to do, left anything to do for him in life. His wife passed away and is completely purposeless, senseless, and not eating properly, not whatever. And then suddenly he has a purpose now. He has to have, we won't say what he has to do because people have to come and see it. He has to help this little refugee girl.
Yeah.
And you said he's displaced from Poland himself.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's actually that's something that happened to the actor as well. So that's actually kind of his own story too.
Wow,
so,
that is very powerful.
Yeah, the name Prochnow, with the OW at the end, is very typical for a certain part of Germany that was at the time a part of Germany, Eastern Germany. Böhmen und Mähren, or Ostpreußen, which is now part of Poland and Czech Republic, Slovakia, and doesn't belong anymore to Germany. So, with a good reason. But then he was a child when he had to flee that country and or that part of Europe, and came to Germany. And he remembers still that they were on the run, and there were even planes following them and stuff. So he has these images still, which is kind of similar to what, as I said, to what people nowadays and children nowadays are experiencing now in the Ukraine, but also already the last decades, like in the Middle East mainly.
And the fish allegory was something that struck me very strongly. Can you say something about that? Well, to fill in, there is a fish tank in the film that the old gentleman, that's his pets, his fish. And a lot of times he's in front of the fish tank, he's observing the fish. And then the little girl, when she comes into his life, she also continues to look at the fish. And tell us about the idea. How did that fish tank, because it struck me very much that, wow, the fish are stuck in this bowl and they can go anywhere, kind of. Yeah,
I mean, it's a little bit like that, yeah. And then there's also this subplot where one kind of fish eats the other kind of fish, so they have to rescue them and stuff. But it's the idea at the start was exactly as you said. I mean, it's this fish tank, and he's a little bit like the fish. He can't move around that much. He's like trapped. And then also fish don't talk, so they don't annoy him. So he can be, peace and quiet and everything, but then also there's this word in Arabic, which is actually the title in Arabic. If you looked at the poster, we included the Arabic title on the poster, and also in the film, and it says Ghurfatuma, and you can read it as Gharfatuma as well, which is because you don't spell vowels in Arabic. So and the one word means a handful, just the amount of water or amount of anything that fits in your hand, in the palm of your hand, and the other one means a room.
Yep.
So it can mean both. If you read it, it can mean a room of water or a handful of water. So that was like connecting to the title a little bit as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the case of the fish, it's and then when she's I don't want to take over because all right, so we'll give a chance to we come back. Dale, it's your turn.
Okay, what would you like to know? Where I started, or
how did this idea come to you? How did the film had its genesis, and what happened?
Yeah, well, I was in the middle of writing another screenplay that took place in Pakistan, a very heavy subject matter, beautiful story, but it just kept coming out too Hollywood for me, which, when you're dealing with a limited budgets, no matter what, you can't compete with that. So you have to be different. You have to be, and that's what I commend you for recognizing a comedy, because very seldom do comedies are they in film festivals, because people want the edgy drama, all that sort of stuff. So, but we have a story in there that deals with, I guess, a serious subject matter that is at hand right now. So, I flipped over. I went over to this script. We churned it out, and after we got our first draft, a week later, we flew to Sicily and we were scouting locations. And about 6 months later, we went to camera. But the thing about this thing, the movie stars Burt Young from Rocky. We have Nick Mancuso from the Ticket to Heaven. An actress from Rome, her name is Rosella Brescia, and I had no idea how famous she is in all over Italy because she got mobbed everywhere. We had a young kid by the name of Tommaso Sinelli who had to learn a dialect of Sicilian for this movie, and he's in all kinds of shows right now. It was between him and another kid for the Avatar series. He's a brilliant kid. And we have Charlie Torelli, who is like a Spalding Gray type of character. Great one-man plays, who carries a lot of roles in this movie. We did a lot of prosthetics. And we have the recording artist, Lorena McKennett. She's sold like 20 million albums, and she is has a voice of an angel, so why not give her the voice of God in this movie? So our goal with this is it's about the appreciation of culture and languages, because premise-wise, it's easy to bomb your neighbor if you know nothing about them.
Yeah.
So if you understand their language, if you understand their culture, if you understand that they are just like you can appreciate them. And that's one of the most important things in this film. There's currently supposedly 7,000 languages in the world today. And they say in 100 years, 90% of them will be gone. So I think the importance of embracing our culture and our languages, we also understand a sense of humor from that's like Jakob's humor versus Crystal or Jessica's would be very different, but each, why not appreciate each of them? My comedy or my humor, nobody would understand, but that's another story.
Actually, you made a very interesting point about the diversity and how this whole thing is very much ties in together. And through humor, you can say a lot of things that you cannot say in serious situations. And one thing I wanted to ask you about the choice of having the same actor play so many different roles. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us anything about that? Was that a necessity, or was it a choice? Or
it was a choice. It was a necessity. It became a burden. It was many different things. Because to put him through prosthetics, it was 5.5 hours of prosthetics every day before we can even go to camera. So that was a huge burden. But here's the thing: we shot everything in North America and then Sicily. And in Sicily, he's performing to nobody while driving in a car down a road. And then 11, 12 months later, I'm shooting him in prosthetics in a green screen, performing to nobody again. And with comedy, you gotta get the timing right and the relationship right and the movement of the car and the refraction of lights on the windshield. And it seems very simple, but it was crazy.
Yeah. It makes it more difficult, I would say, because then if they're two different actors, then you have, you just shoot the scene and that's it. You're done. You don't have to think about all these, how is this going to stick to that and so on. But for an actor, it's a fantastic feat. I'm thinking about it from an actress's point of view. Wow, wouldn't I welcome something like that in which I do one with a heavy wig, with a curly hair, dark hair, short hair, even a beard,
Yeah.
So, Jessica, how did your film come about?
I'll just unmute myself there. So I was working on a different feature. I was trying to take a short and make it work into a feature. And I don't know if any of you guys have struggled with that, but that doesn't always work. And I was feeling the frustrations. And I was also at the same time TAing for a course at UCLA. And there was an instructor who was doing a TV producing class, and he was presenting different ideas to the students, basically how to capitalize on the trauma of the world. And he started to talk about all these different things like war and whatnot. But when he came back the next day to class and he goes, "Oh my gosh, you guys, I forgot to talk about one thing. If someone could figure out how to capitalize on rape, that'd be so cool. Like someone could make so much money and nobody's tapped into that." And my heart just kind of like sank a little bit. And, I've had some experiences of my own, and I said, I'm just going to write the story, and I'm not going to let somebody who doesn't understand that type of trauma write it for us. And I ended up having so much support and help from friends and family. A lot of people shared their own stories. And so I just started to take all these different stories from childhood up to, at the time when I wrote it, and my friends' stories from childhood up to the time, and just kind of put them all together, and then sorted through and created 2 new characters and kind of put everything into them. And what was really cool is when we started shooting, by the end of not cool, but like cool that people could talk about it. By the end of the filming, almost every woman had come up who was a part of the show and shared an experience that they had. And it was a way for them to start talking about things as well. So that was really powerful, that we were creating an atmosphere even within our cast and crew to start talking about what had happened, and to find this way of expressing ourselves through art, and to show expressing ourselves through art. And this happened before the Me Too movement became a hashtag. It just took us a long time to finish the movie, but it happened before a lot of stuff changed in the world recently. And as you said, Nora, a lot of the things are so relevant right now, even though we did this, maybe 5 years ago or so.
Yeah, that's the sad part about this whole thing. But like Dale was also saying, everybody in their own way, like Crystal's telling her own family experience, her own story, grandmother's story, and what happened, why did she run away, and so on. Jakob, your inspiration, Dale, your inspiration. It's very important that we shed the light on these stories and we share them, because when we share them, somebody out there might be watching and they say, oh my God, I didn't know that happened, because the same thing happened to me. So they feel less singled out. They feel a little bit more included in the dramas of the world, because by inclusion and by sharing these stories, we can get to possibly a solution and a better tomorrow, even though I keep saying that from years after year. Like, this is our 9th edition of the festival. We keep hoping that next year we're going to have films that will only talk about how beautiful the rainbow is and riding into the sunset and things like that. But it's not happening because the issues are still here. So I want to take a moment here and acknowledge some of our viewers who are following us. I said hello, Norbert Abu Darham. He is one of our filmmakers. His film is called Chez Nous, which is a road movie about musicians who are receiving us into their homes in France. So they go from home to home, but it's not only the music and the improvisations that they do together, but also they talk about what it is like to be a musician today in this world, in this atmosphere. And that film is screening online. I have to say that unfortunately, some of the films we had to make choices. Some of them are screening online and some are screening in person. Like from the filmmakers that we have here, Crystal's and Jessica's films are screening online, and Jakob and Dale are screening in person. All the information is on our website. And when you go here, actually, I should point this one, because we have early bird tickets that are still good until the end of this week, the end of this weekend and into Monday. And they're only $7, and they allow to come and see the film instead of $15, and $75 for an all access pass that allows you to see everything that is on offer and attend the in-person events, as well as catch the films online. A few titles have requested that not to screen online, and those are marked on the website. Unfortunately, due to licensing issues, they cannot screen online, but everything else is available after the 20th. Once the in-person section ends, we go to the online section. So this said, I want to go back to our viewers and acknowledge another viewer who has some nice words for everyone. It's always great to hear nice words. And here it is. Michael Clays is saying, thank you all for giving your time to help us enjoy your work with the benefit of your insights, like, what you think about it. And then on comedy, he has something interesting to say. Comedy and serious lessons, Muhammad Ali once said, "There are no jokes. The truth is the funniest joke of all." So the truer you are towards something, the funniest it gets to be. So there we go. We're almost at the middle of it. So I want to open up now the discussion and ask you what you expect, or how did you find out about our festival, and what do you expect from screening at our festival, and whatever else you want to mention in those terms, like how difficult it is to navigate the festival circuits. Maybe we can also address that. Any takers, whoever wants to jump in.
May I?
Yes, of course.
Just to add something to what you just said before, because I completely agree. We need to raise awareness, like for topics, and what I especially enjoyed was listening to you, Jessica, right now, as it is so powerful to have like these stories being told and shared, and then getting something back from people who can relate to that. And actually, with the other screenwriter that I was writing the film with, I just recently had a discussion, because she also has a refugee background, or like a history, and we read Adorno together. I don't know if you ever read him. I didn't before. But there's this booklet. It's just a small one, which is great, but it's still so complicated. But there's something in there which I find so relatable and true, because he says that if people get victims of circumstances or other people, then the only thing that they really have, and they really that is really theirs, is the remembrance and the memory of it. And if you take that away from them or neglect it, then it's like the deed being done all over again. So it means that sharing these stories, not only does it help maybe people who don't know about these situations, but also it helps the people keeping the stories alive, and that's something very important. And that's actually, I think you're muted, Nora. I don't hear you, but that's actually something that I looked for in this festival, because I mean, the title of the festival speaks for itself. So
yeah,
that's why we applied.
Actually, that's a very important point that you're making, and the memory of a trauma or something terrible that has happened, whether it's on the personal level or on the national level or the human level or whatever it is, if you erase it, then you are erasing the person that survived that trauma and not giving them the right they deserve as a victim of something. That I had not thought about that, but it's a very, very important point. And by shining the spotlight on these situations, then it's like shades of trauma. Some traumas have taken off somebody's life. And maybe this is a moment where I should also say that besides the violence and all that triggered me to open this festival, to start this festival, was a personal story as well. As the 10th anniversary of the horrible murder of my cousin and my uncle approached, who were victims of a hate crime, and I wanted to do something meaningful to commemorate them. And then my first instinct was to do something, a film festival that was anti-violence. And then I figured, yeah, but that's very limiting. So you're only going to show films that are about people praying and meditating and doing some very peaceful things, well, where's the story? You need, and then my sociology background kicked in in parallel. I have a master's degree in sociology from the London School of Economics. which I completely forget every now and then. And that sociologist told me, you need to look at social issues. Why did you go study sociology in the first place? And then I figured, okay, we're going to open it up, and it's not going to be only about violence, because violence also is triggered from social issues, and social problems do produce violence as well. So they're very closely interrelated. And I figured, okay, we'll open it to include all sorts of human social issues. And concentrating on the festival and also on my acting as a performer made it not easy to forget the trauma, but to be able to better deal with it. And talking about it is very, very important. You cannot just ignore. That's why in life, when somebody dies, even under normal circumstances, there is a mourning period. Society has made it that we have to grieve. We have to get it out of our system and remember and all that. Otherwise, it's like they didn't exist, you know? So it's very, very important, this shining the spotlight on unfortunately traumatic and terrible issues. Yes, who else wants to? Yeah.
Well, I wanted to say a little something on Jakob's mention of memory. I think that's a really interesting theme explored that I think many of us can connect to. In my case, it's like how with interviews, oral interviews, how do people recollect the past? And it's very political because the transference of memory into how they tell a story is actually shaping as it comes out. And so, and then that informs us of history, which is very kind of then what is truth? What is the past? Whose stories do we listen to? And what do your memories reveal of what you decide to tell and what you decide not to tell? So I think for me, from a feminist perspective, is looking into silent spaces. You mentioned trauma, and that's a very big one, but what do we keep inside? So looking into silent spaces for me is a really interesting approach to filming, because sometimes it's not what you're saying literally, it's maybe sometimes your body language or what's not being said. And I just wanted to address your question earlier about the festivals is, you know, what do you do with a project that you don't fit neatly in one specific category? I'm so glad you're all nodding there, because I'm like, okay, well, I want to reach the African American community. I want the Asian community. I don't want to be siloed into like a specific type of film. And so like socially relevant brings all that in, because it's like we're all connected with social issues, but we still have our own personal stories. And that's a beautiful space that we're sharing right now.
Yeah, that's basically one of the concerns we had at the beginning, because there are festivals that focus. There is the Asian American Film Festival. There is the Harlem Film Festival, Black Lives Matter. I mean, there are also LGBTQ festivals. There are Real Abilities, which is running next month, and we have partnered with them, which is about disability and different abilities and so on. But they all focus on one issue. And if somebody is adverse to that issue, they don't want to hear about it, then they might just completely bypass it. But this way, by bringing everything together, it's I feel like it offers a bigger range of things, and then people can pick and choose from them. Hopefully, it's always the same concern. Are we always preaching to the converts? Are we preaching to the choir here? All the people who already are interested in this type of film. But I feel like it's growing, judging from our, by the way, whoever is watching, judging from our subscribe. I'm going to do like the YouTubers who go, subscribe, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell and so on. Because judging from the subscriptions, it has grown enormously, especially during the last couple of years where we had to go online. Suddenly it opened it up to a much bigger audience than the audience base we were limited with had we only concentrated on the festival happening in the cinema in New York. Plus, what we are doing now is something that we did not have before. in the sense that we were only able to talk to the filmmakers who came to New York during the festival. And the last couple of years, as we couldn't have anybody come here so we can talk to them, we decided to do the talks online. And now we can talk to all of the filmmakers who are in the selection, regardless of whether they're attending or not, whether they're screening online or in person, and where they are in the world. We have connected the other day with New Zealand. It was 6 a.m. for them, and Australia, Sydney, it was 4 a.m. or something like that. And then Beirut, it was 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. or whatever. And all of the films, almost all of the films, if the filmmakers were here, would agree about this memory point. A lot of them have that commonality about transferring the memory of a story, or especially we have a very huge Indigenous people's rights section this year. We have Native Americans, we have First Nations from Canada, we have West Africa, Western Sahara, we have Chagossians, and there's one more we had. Yes, of course, the Artsakh people in Armenia, who had a 44-day war 2 years ago, and the whole world was silent about it. And now everybody's, Ukraine, we have to help Ukraine. 5,000 people died in Armenia, and nobody talked about it. So I feel like I need to bring that up as well. So anybody wants to jump in on this next?
Sure.
Same question, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to continue on what Crystal was saying. It's interesting to see such an eclectic selection of films in this. We've had great fortune in the film festivals that we've been in, that they've been really well done, and we appreciate what you're doing with this, because bringing this, like, I want to see each one of these films you guys have. So I'm looking forward to that, and with the idea of like I said, doing a comedy, it's most festivals don't bring in comedies, but it's great to be able to bring it into a festival, to have another sort of way of telling a story like that. And with the whole idea of, cultural identity, as Crystal was mentioning, in our film, sure, it centers around an Italian group or a Sicilian group, a Sicilian family, and a boy that was a translator. But the thing is, I find people of all different ethnicities coming up to me after the screening of the film and saying, from Jamaica or wherever they are, and saying, I was a translator when I was a kid. I identified with that person. And, so there's in North America, we are, other than the indigenous peoples, a big group of immigrants one way or another down the line. So we all can identify it, whether it's us, whether it's our grandparents, whether it's our great-grandparents, and to be able to reconnect with that history it's kind of a fun thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I need to bring up 2 points regarding your film. One of them is the fact that it's a comedy, and a couple of years ago we had another comedy, and I must say it is in distribution now on the screens in New York. We read an article about it in the New York Times not too long ago. And the other one is, your film is part of Voices of Canada. This year, we have partnered with the Canadian Consulate General and Telefilm Canada. And the films that are Canadian and tell the Canadian experience, which are quite diverse, because we have one film which is called Les Libres, the Free Ones. And it's a French-Canadian film about prisoners who have finished their term and are integrating into Canadian society, and very, very interesting ways in which they are reintegrating. It's a documentary. And then there's your film, which is doing the opening of the festival on the 16th. It's a comedy, so a completely different take. And then there is another one, which is called The River You Step In, which is a narrative feature, and that's playing. The Canadian spotlight is basically on Saturday in the afternoon, and there are a few short films which are very fascinating, Canadian shorts. So all these come under Voices of Canada, and it's all on the website. When you go on the website and you click Voices of Canada, it will take you directly to the trailers that are specific to the Voices of Canada selection. And the comedies, yeah, they are the spice of life. I mean, you cannot be too serious too all of the time. And we are happy to laugh a little bit about situations and and life. Any
Daniel,
more?
are people laughing at the protest, the trucks during the thing in Toronto on the border?
Oh my God.
Well, I don't know. Here's the thing. They were all commenting on the trucks coming through Toronto and going to Ottawa. In Toronto, we just call that traffic. Sorry, bad humor.
Well, we were worried a bit because we're supposed to be receiving maple syrup, little maple syrup bottles, which are a gift for our Voices of Canada series. And we are just crossing our fingers that the maples are not on those trucks. So I don't think they are. I think they are already in the US. So just a little note there. So we have some time still, and I would like to ask you a question about your next projects. This is great to talk about what you have brought to the festival, because I'm always planning ahead. I want to know that we have films coming up for our 2023 edition, and then after that. So who wants to talk about what they are planning next?
Could I just jump in a little bit about before real quick?
Yes, sure.
I just wanted to say that this festival, for I don't know, for people like me at least, and maybe some of you all, I mean, I grew up biracial, so I always felt like I belonged in different worlds, or I didn't fit anywhere. And I find that through my filmmaking, I'm experiencing that same situation in a lot of festivals. And this festival, it just feels like we fit. And that we have a place and a voice. And I think that's so important for so many of us. And so when I'm hearing you say, Nora, like, oh, we worry maybe we're not bringing in people, or things are changing and whatnot. I mean, this is such a blessing for so many of us, because, you know, the festival circuit is hard. And we've been told, oh, we love your film. We love your film. It's not super programmable, though. Or, you know, it's not quite what we're looking for, but we, you know, apply next year and we'll give you free entrance for your next film. So we got a lot of that. And to have a place where we belong and where we have a voice, like, it's just such a wonderful experience. And side note, I appreciate that you use Film Freeway, because it was super easy for me to use. So thanks for that. And I'll just jump through the next thing that we're doing. We're just working on a web series. So hopefully we'll get some money and make more stuff.
That's very, very interesting. Yeah, I mean, and on a note to elaborate a little bit on that, unlike a bunch of festivals, I don't want to name them because everybody's free to go in whatever direction they like. If that's what's suitable for them, they're more than welcome. We don't go to the big film festivals like Cannes, Berlin, Rotterdam, or wherever and pick the best films and then bring them here. We go to our submissions. We want to hear the voices of filmmakers whose films otherwise might go unnoticed, and give them that opportunity. Of course, that means I have to work harder, because if a film has not already made a noise or is not coming with the endorsement of another bigger festival already, then it means that we have to really push. We have to post incessantly on social media, send out press releases, do a lot of homework. That's why you get all those lengthy emails from me asking you to push, because we are in this together. I don't want you to be disappointed and come to the cinema and see that only a few people are sitting there. And there is only so much a film festival can do, because we have 64 films from 39 countries. And even if I sacrifice even the 4 or 5 hours of sleep that I get, and I say, okay, I'm going to use them to promote further, is not enough, because a publicist or a PR person may take on 1 or 2 films during a festival and focus on them. And here we are with 64 titles. So that's why I keep harping on the filmmakers that please collaborate, please do your part. And we contact all the consulates, all the embassies, all the different countries that these films come from, different outreach groups that might be interested in the theme that a film is tackling. And that's why we send a pre-selection letter to the filmmakers asking them to give us an elaborate outreach strategy so we can make sure that people out there. And in New York, it's hard. It's hard because its competition is so fierce. On any given moment, there are 10,000 things that are happening that might be equally, if not more, enticing and pulling the people to their direction. So let's go about more future projects.
Well, I wanted to share that my original title was Unruly Chinese Women because I'm fascinated by women's stories and the things that disrupt these kind of like normative, patriarchal bullshit structures. So with this documentary process, I've discovered so many interesting stories about these women who grew up there, who snuck out on secret dates and crossed the color line and did these things. And we all think, oh, Chinese are so proper, these girls. I'd love to do, and I am working on the story to create a narrative feature on the unruly Chinese women.
Wow, that would be a very interesting topic. Yeah. So, who else wants to talk about their next project?
I love the title, Crystal. Really, Unruly Chinese Women is like, it sounds like a contradiction, but that's only because of our prejudices, and it's great. Because I know some Chinese decent women of Chinese descent in Germany, and they always, like, when they date, they get it a lot that they meet men then, and the men think that they are somehow very timid and very straight and everything, and not very tidy and very whatever. I mean, and then they are loud and funny and stuff, and completely the opposite. And yeah, it's very interesting. It's a good topic. I'm looking forward to seeing.
Great.
See, you have an audience already. Yeah. Next projects.
For me, yeah, a lot. I mean, like plenty of projects. But the thing that I'm really working on at the moment, maybe the most, is like as a writer, is a series on lobbyism on EU level for pharmaceutical companies, and a woman that has like a story of a little bit like Breaking Bad, like switching sides. She's a environmental activist at the start, and then she needs to rescue her boyfriend who's very, very sick. And there's only one way, and that's that she gets into lobbying for a pharmaceutical company. And
Wow.
that turns her like really bad. So,
Wow, that is fascinating.
it's an interesting thing. Yeah, I worked on it like for several years already, and now we have like the perfect team, and we just finished the trailer and the Bible, and we get it out there now.
Yeah.
We will see.
That's cool. That's cool. Recently, I got sucked into a German series. What was it called?
Which one?
Berlin.
Babylon.
Babylon,
Yeah.
Berlin. Oh my God. I was like, I can't leave it. I have to finish. I have to finish. It started as this police thing, and it's like, a normal character going about their policing. And then it goes into a Berlin in the late 20s, which was an incredible place of all these incredible characters. And oh my God, it was so inspiring that when that guy who is the Jewish writer who gets out the Lufthansa issue, brings it out in the newspaper, he went, and Mrs. Elizabeth, the landlady, had cooked goulash. And I felt, I have to try this.
Cook goulash. So that's actually like Hungarian, isn't it? Goulash, but it's very. It's very common in Germany.
I know. Why did she serve him goulash?
Germans love
I
meat.
don't know. So I said, I must make this, and I made a cooking video, and I'm preparing the goulash in it. So
Nice.
it was so funny. And then one day I said, I'm making the sauerkraut because that's another dish that guy ate. So I figured, wow, that is so interesting. You can do a show about all the foods that have been served in all these movies.
True.
And it could be a funny, interesting thing.
I'm looking forward to your clip then about chocolat, when he does the beef on chocolate.
Wow, that's going to be
That's good.
very long because I love chocolate. Great. Any more takers? We're a little over the time, but it's okay. This is YouTube. If people don't like, they can tune out.
I have, I guess, 2 different novels that we just optioned. So we're working on them. We got a sci-fi thriller, and one that's really kind of dear to my heart is dealing with trauma of some teens, but it's more of a psychological piece and stylized somewhere around a VAO meets Stranger Things sort of thing. So it's a bunch of kids in a contemporary setting.
Interesting. Always interesting to hear stories about younger generation. And yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Just because we're already over time. Who of you comes to New York? Because I will, and it's my first time in the US. So
I'll see you there.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, let me wrap up, and we'll just chat a little longer if it's okay with you guys.
Okay.
Does anybody want to say something urgent that he wants the audience out there to hear?
See all of their films.
Yes, yes. By the way, everybody, whoever is listening or whoever will tune in later, because they might not tune in right now, but this clip is going to be on our YouTube channel and they can watch it anytime. Here is the website where you can go for all these films. They are fantastic. If you can't see them in person, catch them online, and stay in touch and subscribe. Okay, I'm going to get off broadcast.